Hi everyone, welcome back to my channel. I'm Eliza and we're going to do the mid-year book freakout tag. So let's get into it. Question number 1 is the best book that you've read so far this year. This was hard to decide because really I've rated 4 books 5 stars so far this year, which isn't a lot, and only one of those is a novel. So I've actually gone with a picture book that has really stuck with me since I read it a couple of months ago, and that is Ning and the Night Spirits by Adriana Fong. This book has gorgeous illustrations and a lovely story alongside it. It was so sweet and moving that it made me want to cry a little bit towards the end because it was just such a feel-good, happy ending to a story about a little boy who struggles to make friends until he meets the night spirits that have been exiled from his little village. The illustrations are just gorgeous. I can't get over them. Even the map at the beginning, just so much detail. There are lots of cute creatures in here that you kind of feel like you make friends with alongside Ning, including this little blue blob. The illustration style in here also really inspires me to get drawing again, and that's another reason why I think I love it so much, because you can infer so many things just from the images alone, as well as the writing obviously adding to that. Yeah, cute. 5 out of 5. Question number 2 is the best sequel you've read so far this year. I've fully committed to reading a brand new series to me this year, which is the Shady Hollow series by Juno Black. Each book in the Shady Hollow series follows a mystery, sometimes murder mystery, sometimes not, in a town full of animals where all the characters are animals, woodland creatures. And with each book, the story in the world expands a little bit as the main characters visit other towns. The animal characters are really entertaining and distinct. The main character is a fox who loves to go sleuthing. She's a journalist and she likes to get involved and see if she can solve the mysteries. I saw that my friend Laura, hi Laura, rated this as a 2-star, which just, ugh. I have to say the first book is the only one I didn't solve. So I've read the 2nd, 3rd and 4th since then. And I've solved each of them with who the culprit is or who the murderer is. But that's kind of satisfying for me because that doesn't always happen. I think one of the things though that I really enjoy about this series is that you could see them as predictable because the stories are quite low stakes and cozy and immersive, and the world is just, I want to live there minus the murder and stuff. That's why I really enjoy it, because it gets me thinking a bit, trying to solve what's happened, but also it's not like high fantasy where you really have to focus. And if you're paying enough attention, you kind of pick up on the clues and you'll probably be able to solve it. And this will lead into question number 4 about new releases coming soon. Question number 3 is a new release that I haven't read yet but want to. One of them I did buy while I was overseas a couple of months ago, and that is Leigh Bardugo's The Familiar. I haven't read any of her work before. I did start Ninth House once, but I didn't get very far. I think it wasn't what I was feeling like at the time. I've heard good things about it. I think I'll pick it up when I feel like some historical fiction with a dash of fantasy. Ava Reid is another author that I've heard good things about, but I haven't read her stuff before. I've heard good things about her books, A Study in Drowning and Juniper and Thorn. Study in Drowning is kind of meant to be a bit dark academia-ish, which draws my interest. She has a Lady Macbeth adaptation, interpretation coming out, I think, in August. And the cover really slaps. I love those colours, those covers that have a sort of classical looking portrait with bold neon type on the front cover. I think it looks really cool. I've seen that as well with My Year of Rest and Relaxation, and also this book that sounded interesting called Hot Soup. There's one really nice cover of it that follows that kind of theme, that style, but the cover that I've seen everywhere is the ugly one. Sorry, no offense. I'm not into it at all. I might pick up some more of those historical dramas. I keep saying dramas, historical fiction books later in the year. I'm not sure, it depends. Depends on the vibe, you know. Question 4 is your most anticipated release for the second half of the year. As I mentioned in question 2, I love the Shady Hollow series, and the 5th book, Summer's End, is coming out in next month, July, depending when this video comes out. I'm really excited for it. I've already pre-ordered it for my Kindle. Number 5 is your biggest disappointment, which, my biggest disappointment of books that I read this year was the writing retreat by, I forgot who. The concept and premise of the writing retreat sounded really cool. It's a whole bunch of female writers that go to this remote writing retreat led by this quite reclusive and mysterious famous author who's been quite controversial in the past. Nothing after that set, nothing like the setup, no words, but lots of words. It just didn't deliver for me. I did not like the writing style. It felt juvenile. It had no real character. You could have really built up the atmosphere of the actual writing retreat building. It was meant to be old and creepy, but it just felt hollow. She hadn't really described it very much, and the characters were annoying, and I can read books with characters I don't like. They all felt flat and fake and not really dimensional. I think also audiobooks can make or break. So I read it on audiobook and I didn't really like the narrator's style. However, I still read it within like 2 or 3 days. It also had a story within a story because the writers at the retreat were writing their own stories while they were there, and so there would be excerpts of hers throughout that, which was kind of like a ghost story, but I just hated it. Because I'd gotten through the first part so quickly because I was listening on audiobook, I'd persevered because I wanted to know, but nothing really happened. I was like, someone's going to go missing, someone's going to get murdered, and none of that happened till at least 2/3 of the way through. I had gotten so far that I didn't want to give up, but I just hated it, all of it, which is my own fault, but it makes me angry. I wouldn't recommend this. I could have done without it. I was really disappointed. It's like Tyra Banks from America's Next Top Model when she's like, I can't give you a 0, so you get a 1. That's how I feel. Number 6 is The Biggest Surprise, which I'm currently reading and I haven't finished. It's The Talented Mr. Ripley by Patricia Highsmith. I knew it had some mystery or murder mystery or something. I don't know if you'd call it dark academia. Perhaps you could call this dark academia by the Amalfi Coast. I don't know. I didn't know who this was written by, and I was pleasantly surprised to realize that it was written by a woman, because I feel like there aren't that many classics that are, or books that are recognized as classics written by women. It's really good. I'm really enjoying it. It's quite immersive. The writing style is interesting, and she paints a very vivid picture of the characters. Tom Ripley, the main character, is a bit messed up. More than a bit messed up. He's kind of desperate and deceitful, and yet he's kind of relatable in parts, which is a bit of a concern. I want to see how it unfolds. Question number 7 is your new favorite author, either a debut author or someone that's new to you. For this one, I've chosen Hans Christian Andersen, who you may know as the author of The Little Mermaid. I listened to The Little Mermaid on audiobook on my way home from Europe, and I'd just been to Copenhagen and seen where Hans Christian Andersen lived, which was really cool. Even though I was really tired on the plane ride, I just was blown away by the beauty of his writing, and the narration that I chose was really good. His writing is really elegant in its simplicity and clarity. Obviously, The Little Mermaid is a very short story, but it moves you, and the imagery is really beautiful, especially about the mermaids and under the sea, and then also the daughters of the air towards the end. And you just feel for the characters, even though they are flawed, and you can't get a whole heap of deep development in such a short story, but I really enjoyed it. He's rekindled my love of fairy tales and folklore, which I want to read more of. Number 9 is your newest fictional crush. I don't really get crushes on book characters. I've pulled something out, which this may be controversial. However, I'm going to say Dorian Gray. Hear me out. I read this for the first time earlier this year, and I also listened to the audiobook in tandem. And the audiobook is narrated by the lovely Ben Barnes, who has a great voice for audiobooks as well. Fun fact, he played Dorian Gray in the movie like a decade or so ago. That's why they got him to do the audiobook. Because of him, the audiobook was a joy to listen to. I don't have a crush on the actual Dorian Gray because he's awful. He literally gets one of his old acquaintances to come to his house to dissolve the corpse of someone he's murdered. He is a literal murderer. Not him, but but Ben Barnes. Side note, I had a lot of fun annotating this. It goes quite deep with showing the contrast in ideology, perhaps, of the different characters. So I got really into my annotating, but I have to tell you, my annotations are just a bit unhinged. There's one part where Dorian's friend Harry, who's very pretentious and like a grumpy old man, very unlikable, says, "I don't desire to change anything in England except the weather." And I wrote, "Reeks of privilege," which is true. Number 9 is your newest favourite character. And I had to really think about this one because a lot of the books I've read, I don't feel they have many likeable characters. They might have memorable ones like Dorian Gray, but not likeable. In the end, I went with Vasya from The Bear and the Nightingale. She's the main character in this story, and she is very complex but clear, at least in my mind. She's intuitive, strong-willed, open-minded, and has an affinity for animals and mythical creatures in the story, including the house spirits called the domovoi and other creatures like the Rusalka, which is kind of a water witch siren kind of character who lures men to their deaths, but they're friends. Those mythical creatures also stand out in my mind, especially I think it's Vasila, which is the house spirit who looks after the horses and the stables, and he was just really cute and naive and got along really well with Vasya, and she protects him and the other creatures, and she actually sees all of these creatures. I could relate to Vasya with her love of animals. She's quite inspiring because she doesn't just go with the status quo, and she stands up for what she believes in. The interactions between the Vasila and Vasya were very endearing and cute. I liked the way she was presented and how she went about thinking about things outside of the box. She stuck with me. Number 10 is a book that made you cry, and there is one that made me sob like a baby. I think there's only been 3 books in total that I have cried at, and this is the 3rd. And the others were years ago. This one made me sad and moved, but happy. I was crying sort of happy tears, sort of not. And that book is Black Beauty by Anna Sewell. This book I just decided to read at random. It's a classic you probably have heard of, about a horse that is called Black Beauty. The story follows his journey of life and how he is homed and rehomed. We see how he's separated from the found family that he loves, like his other horse friends, Merrylegs and Ginger. And oh, the last line, I just cried. I just cried a lot, okay, because it was sad and happy. It's like those animal adoption videos on YouTube when you're like, oh, I was treated so badly, but now it's happy. In my mind, it was interesting because I thought that Black Beauty was a really vain character, and he's totally not. He's super chill and lovely and admirable. Who thought a horse could be admirable? I admired the horse. I had all the feels with this book. I want to watch the movie now that's from the 90s. I'm sure I'll just weep even more. All the tears, all the feels for Black Beauty. Contrasting to that is number 11, which is a book that made you happy. I read or listened to 2 great audiobooks at the very beginning of the year that have stuck with me. They are Art Matters by Neil Gaiman and We Should All Be Feminists by Chimamanda Ngozi Adichie. The audiobooks of both of these are really excellent. They're both about 45 minutes and narrated by the authors themselves. Even though I read these like 6 months ago, I remember nodding and laughing along with them. Gaiman and Adichie are both very funny in their own ways. They make you feel less alone with your human experiences because Neil Gaiman's book is about art and being an artist, and also how art is important to life. He also talks about libraries and a bit about work ethic towards the end too, being an artist and consuming art and the importance of art, hence the title Art Matters. And Chimamanda Ngozi Adichie with her experiences as a woman and those shared experiences that many women have. Even though they discuss some of the depressing realities in regards to these topics, they still managed to put a positive spin on them, and they left me feeling empowered, inspired, seen, understood, and also grateful. Lots of people experience these different feelings and have these moments in their lives, so they're really good. They're really good. Wow, so descriptive. How to do art. Be art. Number 12 is the most beautiful book you've read or bought this year. I did mention Ning and the Night Spirits, but I also have 2 more. I got these while I was overseas. This is why I had to get a second suitcase. The first is written by Dawn Casey and it is called Winter Tales. Xana Goldhawk is the illustrator and she just did an excellent job because the illustrations in here are beautiful. And that's one of the reasons why I bought it, because I wanted a keepsake to take home with me. This was before I bought all my 17 other books. The shame. That creature reminds me of the domovoi in The Bear and the Nightingale. This book explores 18 different winter tales from around the world. And the illustrations are just gorgeous. Oh, a little black cat. So cute. For this question, I also chose The Treasury of Folklore, Woodlands and Forests by D.D. Cheney and Willow Wincham. This explores wild gods, world trees and werewolves. Lots of woo. It has gorgeous gold foiling on the front. Ooh, and a creepy dude on the back. On the inside, there's more gritty printmaking style drawings. It's very different to Winter Tales, obviously, but both of the books together makes me really want to get into my fairy tales, folklore, and fantasy. I just want to slowly collect, well, I guess I am slowly collecting a whole bunch of fairy tale, folklore, and fantasy kind of books. Lucky last question is, what books do you need to or want to read by the end of the year? As I mentioned at the beginning, I was kind of sad to realize that I haven't read many 5-star books this year. I actually went on Goodreads a few days ago and realized that I only have, in terms of actual like novels, not picture books, not non-fiction, not graphic novels, whatever, just novels, I only have like, I think it was 18 or something that I've rated as 5 stars. And I know I'm picky, but that was depressing. That was really saddening because I love reading, but I feel like I don't have a whole bunch of 5 stars that I can recommend. I have a complex relationship with reading. So to answer this, I really just want to read more books that I really enjoy that are probably 5 stars. I would like 5 stars that leave me happy and satisfied and that stick with me. This year so far I've read 28 books, which is more than I usually read in a full year. So maybe this is saying something because I'm reading quite a lot quite quickly for me, but it's not really sticking with me and I haven't found a lot that I really have enjoyed, like loved. I also don't think I'm retaining many details from books that I read. Maybe it's because I'm also just getting through books quickly that I'm not letting them sit with me for as much time. So maybe I should be reading more slowly rather than trying to work my way through a big stack or a big TBR list. I do feel the pressure to read a lot, which is funny because it's not my only hobby. It's not even necessarily my main hobby. I do just read things that I'm kind of in the mood for, that strike my fancy, without necessarily tackling books that have been on my TBR list for years and years and years, because I'm not always in the mood for them. But then I chastise myself for it, being like, why did I just read this like popular trendy book when I thought I might not enjoy it that much anyway, when I could have read And I do sometimes. I had this last week until I picked up The Talented Mr. Ripley. I did want to read something, but I wasn't quite sure what I was in the mood for and couldn't pinpoint it, and none of the books that had been sitting there for ages struck my fancy, and a lot of the books I've recently bought were not what I felt like reading either. So then I felt guilty, even though they'll be there. When I come around to them, they'll be there. I don't have to read them now. But yeah, I think I just need to take some pressure off myself sometimes, because it ain't that deep. It ain't that deep. It's just reading. It's meant to be fun. I don't have to take it so seriously as I do. No one's like holding a gun to me and saying, you have to read. It's just me saying, you have to read. So anyway, thanks for joining me today for this video. Leave a comment with a bookish emoji, or let me know some of your favorite books that you've read so far this year or ever. See you in the next one. Bye.